Welcome to our first bonus episode on finance on your bi-weekly dose of Black love. My name is Ellyn for E.
And my name is Paul for P. For those of you tuning in for the first time, we decided to start this podcast to celebrate a milestone in our relationship, 35 years of wedded bliss. And as of April 22nd, 2026, it is 37 years. Every other week, we'll share a part of our relationship with you so you can see what has brought us this far and will take us further. Before we get into today's episode, let's start with a moment of gratitude. I am grateful for life, health, and being in my right mind.
That's debatable.
And Ellyn, what are you grateful for?
I am grateful for this journey that we call life and you being a part of the last 37 years and looking forward to what the next 37 years, if that's possible, will look like.
All right. Isn't that nice? Thank you, honey.
Previously, we discussed marriage and financial growth in season 2, episode 13. If you missed it, take a listen. I am sure you will enjoy that heated discussion because it has taken us almost our whole marriage to save money without a fight breaking out. And if you're a newbie, welcome. And please subscribe so you can catch up and listen to all of our episodes. This week, we will continue our discussion about finances with the first part of our interview with Michael Collison.
So today we welcome our cousin, Michael Collison. Michael recently retired from careers in software engineering and finance. At the age of 50, he started seriously evaluating what retirement might look like and realized major changes were needed if he wanted financial freedom. After reviewing his retirement projections, he developed a strategy that eventually allowed him to retire at the age of 58. Now he shares what he learned to help others prepare financially for the future. He's been married for 30 years, is a father of 3, a grandfather, and according to him, everybody's favorite cousin, nephew, and friend. So today we're interviewing Michael to help both of us and our listeners better understand finances and retirement planning.
I appreciate the invite, and yeah, I'm just excited to talk about finance. Just a quick warning: I could talk about this all day, so I'm
Your
just
sister
excited to
told
be
me,
here.
she
Yes,
said it's your favorite topic. I was like,
it
yeah,
is.
him and his mom could probably go for days on this one.
Mm-hmm.
So we're very happy to have you, Mr. Collison,
Thank you, thank you.
speaking about finances. And it's really a topic that uh, many of us really don't talk about in the Black community. Uh, we just don't really understand how to make money work for us. And it's something that I didn't, growing up, I kind of had, I was always like in survival mode. So nobody really ever talked to me about how to make money work for me. So we were really pleased to have you here. I think it's going to be eye-opening uh, program for our listeners, a topic for our listeners, and some of the information that you're going to be able to provide there. Because many of us are really just not that we don't want to know, but we just haven't had the opportunity to learn about money and how it can work for us. So we really appreciate you taking out the time to come and visit with us today. Um, so I'm going to go ahead and start off with uh, some questions for you, and you just go ahead and give us your response. Uh, okay, are you ready, Mr.
Yep,
Collins?
absolutely
Okay.
ready.
What early experiences shaped your relationship with money?
Yeah, good question. So I would say, growing up in Washington D.C., um, being the son of a single mom, I was aware very early there was not a lot of money. We were never poor or broke, but I was very aware that for the most part, you were going to be able to get the essentials.
Right.
I remember things like when I'm gonna date myself, when Izod polo shirts started trending, and I wanted one. And I remember, this is back in the 70s. They were like
Right.
$30. My mother
Yeah.
was like, "Boy, I'll buy you a polo shirt and sew an alligator on." Where there was no money, no extra stuff. And as I got into high
Right.
school, not having a car, you know,
Yeah.
like, "Mom, I can't go out with a girl without having a car." And she was like, "Shoot, you can take the bus." I'm like, "She's not getting on the bus." My mom would say things
Yeah.
like, "If she really likes you, she'll get on the bus." And I'm like, "No one's getting on the bus with me." you know. And so I was aware very early that there wasn't a lot of money. Um,
Right.
but it did make me appreciate things. But I will say that
Mm.
it didn't. I would say it didn't serve me well, in the sense of when I then got money, I just started spending all of it.
Right.
Right. Because, after I got my first job, I got out of school. It was basically like, oh, all this money's to be spent, like most people do. Didn't have a lot of it. So just spend it all. That was really my, blueprint, for years. Money's made to be spent. And
Right.
yeah, and that wasn't something my mother taught me. It was, I basically took the programming that, this country gives you, that, and I
Mhm.
remember, the whole yuppie thing, and then there was
Right.
buppies, and it was
Yeah.
like, I work hard, play hard. So you spend all your money, and, you don't think about just doing whatever everybody was doing. So I would say those are the early experiences. It wasn't necessarily positive. But I
Right.
think I was able to go back to it where my mother was always a saver. Um,
Okay.
yeah, my mother was never had, any major debt or anything like that. She was always a saver. And I remember, um, you know, right out of school, probably a year out of school, I had to call her and ask her for some money.
Right.
And you guys remember when she goes, "Now, Michael." And I remember I needed some money to pay my American Express bill. And my mother made me, there was no internet back then. She made
Right.
me do a budget, fax her the budget, go back and forth to the FedEx store or whatever.
Right.
And I'm like, "Mom, I need to send the money." She's like, "Well, we're not doing anything until you budget."
Oh my
And
God.
so I said, "I got to send them the money." She was like, "That's your problem." And my mother made me fax. So I remember 3 or 4 times I'd go and I'd have to fax her this budget, and did the budget. And she said, "And if you don't pay me back," she said, "there will be no more money. There'll be no more help." And that's one thing I learned from her. I never asked my mother for money ever again after that,
Right. Right.
you know. But even then, it still wasn't enough for me.
Right.
It wasn't enough for me, because and you'll hear me talk about this as a thread throughout this
Mm.
podcast, that I was doing what most Americans were doing, which was I wanted a lifestyle that was more expensive than the income that I made, and I felt I was entitled to it. And
Right.
and if I had to put my finger on one thing that afflicts most Americans and a lot of my clients, is they want a lifestyle. If they're making 5,000, they want to be able to spend 6. If they're making 6, they want to spend 8. If they're making 8, they want to do 11. It's never enough for most people.
So Michael, that segues right into the next question I had. You basically
Mhm.
get the answer. I ask you, and the question is, what's a common money belief that holds people
Mhm.
back? And I think with
Yeah.
that, nail right on the head. You hit that right on the
Yeah.
head. With
Yeah.
spending more than they have, and then having this sense of entitlement that I'm entitled
Absolutely.
to a certain
Right.
life. You know,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to tie into that,
right?
because I remember saying it to myself. I said, if I make this amount of money, I'll never have money problems again. And I remember, shoot, the last 3 years of my working career, I was making more than like I ever dreamed.
Sure.
And I still had money problems. I don't mean problems like debt or whatever, but you think if you're making X amount of money, you'll never have to work again. You'll be able to. No, it's just a different set of issues. And so
Right.
There's a guy that I really respect. His name is Ramit Sethi. He wrote a book, I'll Teach You to Be Rich, and he has a podcast. And one of the things that he has shown on his podcast is he does couples. Is he demonstrates to people the amount of money that you have in your bank, in your investment accounts, basically your net worth, is unrelated to your happiness. And he has seen people who have almost nothing to people that whose net worth are $4 or $5 million, and they're still unhappy because they think they should have more.
Right. Wow.
So one of the biggest money beliefs is thinking that having more will solve your problem, and it will not.
Right. Very interesting. How do you define financial success beyond just income?
Yeah. So for me, I define financial success as financial independence.
Okay.
And when I say financial independence, if you think about it, why do most people go to work? What do most people say? Well, I got to pay the bills.
Right.
Well, what if they didn't have any bills to pay? Would they go to work? A lot of people probably wouldn't, or they would do a different job, right? So then for me, financial independence means you get to decide what you want to work on, what you want to do. So if you have, it could be a job, but what if you have the financial independence in assets? And when I say assets, I'm talking about stocks and bonds, real estate. Even today, it can be gold, but basically things that appreciate in value over time. What if you have a portfolio of those things that can replace your income? Well, then you don't have to go to work. Or again, you can do something different. Maybe you want to volunteer. Maybe you want to open a homeless shelter. Maybe you want to go overseas and volunteer. Maybe you want to work half the year. The point here is financial independence gives you the option to do that. If you don't have financial independence, then you must work. And a lot of people work in careers that they don't like, but guess what? We have to pay the bills.
That's right.
Got to pay the bills. Well, at that point, the system has you and you're just a cog in the machine. And so, and by the way, financial independence actually has a definition. We can maybe talk about that this week or maybe even the next session, but there's actually a formula. It's not just, oh, you're financially independent. No, there's actually a formula that says, hey, if your expenses are, let's say, 100K, financial independence says, if you wanted to stop working today, you need 25 times that.
Right.
In a portfolio of about $2.5 million, and you can safely withdraw 4%, which is 100 grand.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, yeah. So there's literally a formula. So the people that created financial independence retire early, they literally got it down to a formula. So it's not a concept.
Right.
There's literally a formula. So, yeah.
Okay, Mike. Another question I have. This is one I really want to hear the answer to.
Okay.
What daily or weekly habits make the biggest difference financially?
I would actually say that having a budget and working and living through your budget.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is most adults at least, over the age of 30 have at least attempted to do a budget, let's say in Excel, right?
Okay.
We add up all my expenses and you say, oh, great. Okay. I have all this money at the end of the month. But what most people never do is actually go back and compare their spending to that budget. And what most people never do is actually do what is known as find the money ahead of time. Meaning, if you need to go and make a big purchase, the best way to do it is to have budgeted for it first. Makes sense, right? I have the cash for it. I mean, we're old enough that there was a time when credit wasn't as easily available as it is today, right?
Right.
Where you might actually have to put something on layaway, or you might actually have to, God forbid, save for something. But nowadays, you want a new bed, furniture store has a financing plan. You want a new car. We just bought a new car for my wife today. And we paid, the dealer the guy was shocked. He's saying, well, you want 36 months finance? No, we pay cash.
Right.
pay cash. Used car, pay cash. But so the biggest thing is having a budget and living the budget, because what most people think of as their budget is the mortgage, their rent, the food, car note. But what they don't include is things like emergency fund,
Mm-hmm.
vacation money, buying the next car,
Right.
saving for the house,
Mm-hmm.
retiring early, even things as quote unquote as mundane. I remember my mother passed in March of 2021, and we were living in Arizona, and we were living without budget, and we were flying back from Arizona to DC, and we looked at our budget and we said, "Where's the money coming from?"
Right.
Because we had a travel, vacation, and all of the other stuff. And we soon realized that it didn't fit in any of our existing categories.
Right.
So I ended up taking the money out of emergency, but then I also said, I'm going to create a new category called emergency travel.
Right.
Because someone in your family, especially a family as large as ours, guess what? Someone's going to pass away.
Right.
You're going to need to fly. You're going to need to drive. You're going to need to get a hotel. You need to get an Uber. By the time, especially if you have to fly somewhere, we easily talking $800,000.
Yeah.
Hotel, another $300, $400, $500. So that trip can easily cost you $2,000. So budget blown. So now there's an item in my budget, but $100 a month away.
Right. Okay.
That's living with your budget.
Yeah.
And that is in my opinion, that is a real expense. Most people wouldn't include that because they'll be like, I'll deal with that when it happens.
Right.
But the reality is our family is large enough that it's going to happen. It's not a question of if.
Right.
It's only a question of when.
That's true.
So that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about is most people have a very narrow view of what their budget is.
Yeah.
And they don't include things that are 6 months out, 13 months out, 4 years out, 8 years out.
That's true. That's a good point. Wow. Never thought of that. I never thought of that.
No.
These are some things I don't think people think of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I told you, we paid cash for my wife's car today. My wife just picked it up, but guess what? We continue to put money for her next car, because guess what she's going to need? She's going to need another next car.
Yeah, yeah.
Isn't she?
Yes.
And if she lives long enough, for 5 years from now, 7 years from now, there's going to be another next car. Well, I'd rather have cash for that another next car,
right,
than go and do finance. I don't need to do financing.
Yeah, right. Good point. Excellent.
Well, if only we had these conversations about 20 years ago.
But the thing is, it's never too late. That's the thing. It's never too late.
Never too late. But like Paul said, when you guys first started speaking, we basically, since the loss of my father, Paul and I have been in survival mode. That's all we've been able to do is survive. Because everybody was dealing with whatever they were dealing with. And we were thrown into the world with being married and a baby. And so go to work, take care of that. Go to work, take care of that. So we didn't have to think about that.
Well, but I think we came out pretty successfully. Got 2 kids, got the college degrees. Listen, hey, Mike, we did what we could do.
Absolutely.
Hey, they're not in jail. They got their own place.
Yep.
We got a place to live, plenty to eat, and we all right.
Yep.
But it would be nice, or would have been nice too, if some of these things, and I guess for my parents, they were always like in survival mode. I wouldn't say survival mode. Like, I don't think me and Ella are in survival mode, but I think that like my parents were in survival mode. Like they were like really struggling every day. You know what I'm saying? So I didn't live like that. But
sorry about that.
Okay. But just knowing how to manage money, that's an important skill. That's a skill.
It is.
That's something that they teach in high schools now. Budgeting, finance, how to manage money. Like William, he's like eons ahead of me, when it comes to managing money and even the stock market. He has accounts in the stock market. He's a young man, but he knows how to play that game. He's in that. He's in the throes of that. So he knows how to move his money, manage his money.
But I would say that the biggest problem that I've seen with my clients, it's not the method, it's psychological. Because a budget is just addition and subtraction.
Right.
So if I show you that your income is 5, but you're spending 6, the problem isn't that you don't understand that you're spending 1,000 more. The problem is you don't want to stop. Seriously, it's not a understanding problem. And the reason that I say that is we are so in. Remember earlier when I told you that when I first graduated from school, I remember kind of falling prey to the whole yuppie puppy and hard, play hard kind of thing. And if you think of teenager now, think about all the marketing and advertising messages that they are bombarded with. And one of the messages that they're never given is wait, or no, or you can't afford it. No, it's just like,
that's true.
If you don't have the money for it, just get the store credit card and just put it on the card. No one ever talks about that. And the analogy I use in my coaching business is that most people around the world in Western civilizations where credit is easily available are living in what I call a financial matrix. And I'm using the word the matrix deliberately because in the movie The Matrix, Neo was living one life, or he thought he was living a particular life, but in fact he was living in a computer simulation. But he knew something was wrong.
Right.
And he had to be disconnected, right? And there was a cost to living in the matrix, and the cost was the machines are literally feeding on your body, if you remember that.
Right.
Well, take that same analogy and apply it to the United States of America, where a lot of adults have 2, 3, 4, 5 credit cards, store credit cards, home equity loans, home equity line of credit, all this stuff.
Yeah.
Why do they have these things? Because they believe that they can live, they want to live a life beyond their income. Because if they had the income, they wouldn't need to do the loans and all the credit card stuff. But since they can't, they want to do all this credit. And what they don't see, what they don't understand is the cost, and the cost is the interest.
Yeah.
The cost is the interest. 28% interest on our credit card. 0% balance transfers, and you say, oh, I'm going to pay it off. I see it all the time with my clients. I'm going to pay it off. But the credit card companies know you better than you know yourself. You're not going to pay it off. And then after the 1 year, all the interest is going to be retroactive, and you're not going to pay it off. The issue is, just like in The Matrix, if you remember that one character, Cypher, when he sold out Neo and Morpheus to the machines, he had been disconnected. He goes, I know this stake is not real. He said, but I don't want reality. He said, put me back in and literally allow the machines to feed off my body. I don't care. That's what he said. And that's where most people are. Most people don't care because they want to live the lifestyle that they want to live, and they're unwilling to make the sacrifices.
Yeah.
Most people do not want reality.
Right.
In fact, most people could not live the life that they're living if they did not have the credit cards. And the reason I know it is many of my clients, you'll look at them and they'll say, well, Mike, I can pay my credit card off now. And I said, no, you can't. They say, well, why can't I? I said, because your credit card balance is greater than the amount of money in your checking account.
Yeah. Wow.
How are you telling me? I'm looking at your balances.
Yeah. Right.
Or they'll put a big amount on the card, but then they don't realize, oh, but I haven't paid the rent yet.
Right.
I haven't paid the card note yet. So yeah, there's a cost, and most people don't realize the cost. And the credit card companies don't want you to, because the credit card companies say, you don't have to pay that $5,000 balance off. Just make a minimum payment.
Yeah.
Just $50.
Yeah.
But they're getting 28%. They don't want you to pay it off.
Right. Absolutely not. Killing people.
All right. Now that we got that reality check, some more questions along that line. If someone is starting from zero, what are the 3 steps they should take?
First thing I would say is...
First 3 steps.
Yep, I got you. The first one would be create a set of financial priorities. That was the biggest win when I sat down with my wife before we started doing the budget. And when I say financial priorities, I don't mean list what your bills are. I mean big picture. So as an example, when I sat down with my wife to do ours, we said retire early.
Right.
Second one was fund our kids' college 529 accounts to minimize the amount of money they would have to take out in loans. And we, did that. There were a few other, but those are the two big ones I remember. And I remember it made such an impact on me because I now had a why. And what I mean by that is, since I knew that retiring early was important, I was tired of working in corporate America. Since I knew that we wanted to put as much away for our kids' college, then if I was tempted to buy something else, I was like, but that something else is not more important than this.
Yeah.
It's not more important than my early retirement. That's one of the reasons I believe that people fail is they don't actually have a plan.
Yeah.
It's kind of like getting in a sailboat, but you don't have a destination in mind. Well, then you can go anywhere.
Right.
So when you don't have a plan for your money, then you'll just do anything. You just randomly spend money.
Right.
But if you sit down and say, and I tell my clients, come up with 5 big picture financial priorities. It could be things like an emergency fund, saving for a down payment, retiring early, college, blah, 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 blah. The whole point is these things should actually be in your budget. You should see them. If you're saying you want to retire early, well, then your budget should reflect the fact that, hey, money's going into your 401k. Maybe money's going also after tax, that there's extra money being saved because you said that that's important. If you said that your kid's 529 is important, then where's the money coming out every month? It should be coming out every month. So that's the first one. Because, and then it's a list of, I say 3 to 5, and they're prioritized. And I say prioritize them because that's the order in which the money should be assigned. So if something is a number 1, then that means it's a non-negotiable. We're gonna put money into that every month, and perhaps it should even be getting the most money, right? And then so if you say that your kid's college 529 is so important, then you shouldn't be funding your vacation before that,
That's true. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Your eating out should not be funded. You shouldn't be spending $800 a month if there's no money going into your kid's 529. But these are the kind of trade-offs that we don't actually want to make. And so that's the first one is get that list of financial priorities. To me, that's the, hey, are we going north? Are we going south? Are we going east or west? That's the, okay, where are we going? And what's important? Then the next thing is a true budget that includes not just what your monthly expenses are, but also things like, hey, I have a car, I'm driving 50 miles a day. Okay, you need to set money aside for not only maintenance, as in oil changes, but also when you take your car in for a 30,000 mile service, the 60,000 mile service. What do? They call you. They say, hey, yeah, so we changed the oil, but we also found that you need new brakes. Or how much will that be? $700. Where's the money for that? That's your budget. That's part of your budget. The brakes are not an emergency. The tires are not an emergency. If you're doing 50 miles every day, you're going to need brakes. You're going to need tires. Where is the money for that? The answer is it should be getting budgeted every month because the expenses are going to come. That's what a real budget is. And so that's the next thing. It's not just those regular monthly expenses. It's that stuff that's going to happen 9 months from now, 13 months from now, 17 months from now. Being proactive. If you have an Amazon Prime membership, well, you know it's going to be every 12 months. Then why don't you set aside, I don't know, $12 a month for it? I mean, it's pretty simple, right?
Yeah.
The reason is people want to spend everything that they want to spend on whatever they want to do. And most of the time we're just irresponsible because it's right there in front of you. You could do the math. We just don't want to do it.
No, we're caught up in the matrix. We're not thinking about that.
Right. We're thinking about what we want to do. And then the last thing is you need to interact with your budget on a weekly basis, because a budget is not a static thing. You sit there and you create a budget, but every month something changes. You need to spend more money on groceries this month because in-laws are coming in town. Oh, it's Thanksgiving, we got to spend money on groceries. Well, what if you actually had a Thanksgiving category and funded that? Because guess what? Thanksgiving happens every year. What if we set aside that we're going to budget $150 for Thanksgiving every year? What if we set aside money for Christmas gifts every year? You see what I'm saying? That's a real budget, because that's the money you're going to spend.
Yeah. I mean, these are things that should seem normal, but
Right.
nobody's saying it to you. You
Right.
go about it the way everything has been going about throughout your life.
Mm-hmm.
At Christmas, Dad hands you money, so nobody ever says, "Start a Christmas fund, do this, do that." Dad says,
Mm-hmm.
"Here, here's this for Christmas." And nobody says, "Okay, January 1st, when I give you money, put $5 up." So
Mm-hmm.
I give you money, and then you'll have your extra whatever that you pay.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then I guess when you said how should people prioritize between saving, investing, and paying off debt?
Yeah. This one is kind of challenging. Because for me it's kind of a case by case basis in terms of how much debt do you have and things like that. But one of the things that I found really fascinating, so I use a budget program called You Need a Budget, or the acronym is YNAB. And one of the things that was fascinating was most people think, God, I want to pay off all my debt. And then they do a debt snowball or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And they're sending all this money. But remember what I told you earlier? Most people are actually spending more money than they actually have.
Yeah.
So if you send extra money to the credit card, what's going to happen is you're going to be short on your essentials in your budget. And I've seen this happen with my clients, where I had one client, I mean, 3, 4, 5 times, they said, "Oh no, Mike, we're going to pay off the credit cards, transfer money from the savings. And when we come back to you in 2 weeks, it's going to be all clear." I said, "Okay." Came back to me in 2 weeks. They did pay the card off, and then they had new stuff on the card because they were like, "Oh, the car broke down and we needed new tires, and they were right back where they were before." So YNAB, and I'm a YNAB certified coach, they actually recommend something that's counterintuitive. They actually say, budget for your regular expenses first. It's now April. We start with however money you have in your checking account, and we're going to budget for all the things that you have to take care of before you get paid again. We're not dealing with the debt right now,
Oh, okay.
because guess what? You got to deal with those things. You got to, you need a roof over your head. You need a car. You got to pay your utilities. All those things have to be paid. So then people say to me, "Mike, well, what about the debt? What about all this interest?" And here's the painful truth. I say to my clients, you can't do all of these things at once. But by funding your essentials and then saying to yourself, the interest that I'm going to pay on the card is the cost that I have to pay because of what I did. Because there's consequences for everything that we do. If you overspend, if you don't have the money to pay your credit card off, then what you have to do is you have to pay the interest.
Yep.
Because, and so imagine that you're doing that. Imagine that you're saying, okay, we're going to budget for our rent. We're going to budget for all these essentials. And then you say, you know what? And then the only thing we have left now is all we can do is make minimum payments. Okay, that's fine. And you might say, well, Mike, that's not fine. I don't want to pay the interest. But what I would come back to you is and say, again, this is the cost of doing business, and this is what you have to pay. You have to pay this interest right now. Then what happens is, if you continue that process, you start to reduce your costs, and you start to fund those things that I talked about that are 3 months ahead and 9 months ahead. So now you're not having those extra emergencies. You're not having to put those extra things on the credit card. You see what I'm saying? And then what happens is then you start to reduce spending in certain areas. And then when you reduce the spending, now you can start to send extra money to the credit card. So it's counterintuitive by budget for what you have to budget for. And we deal with the credit card last. It's counterintuitive, but think about this. You think about all the debt consolidation companies. Think about all the companies that say, we'll help you consolidate your debt. And what happens? People do it, they pay it off, and then 18 months later, they're right back in debt. So if the debt consolidation was so great, why are they back in debt? There's a simple reason, because you're overspending every month. So you haven't addressed the root problem. The root problem is you're overspending every month. If you stop overspending, you don't go back into credit card debt. But we don't want to do that. Remember what I said earlier? We want to spend what we want to spend because we got to show off to our neighbors. We got to show off to our family. We even want to show off, we even have an ego need. I got to go get this. Okay. Well, there's a cost for that. Just understand there's consequences for everything that you do. So I realized this because I did exactly what I just described. I can tell you probably 7 or 8 times in my adult life that I do this. Oh my God, I got this credit card debt. I hated it, did austerity, paid it off. And 18 months later, I'm right back into debt because I was spending more than I was bringing in because I wasn't saving for the $800 brake job. I was calling that an emergency. It's not an emergency. If you drive your car every day, you're going to have to replace the brakes. If you drive your car every day, you're going to have to do tires. You're going to have to do oil changes. You're going to have to do the DMV registration. You're going to have to do emissions. All of those things are real costs in your budget that you don't see and that people don't budget for.
Yeah, true.
And so,
like
and so I actually prioritize budgeting first, meaning understanding your expenses and set the money aside. Literally going back to old school. We're all old enough to remember a time when you actually used to cash a check and get cash. So imagine the analogy of dumping the cash on your kitchen table, getting a bunch of envelopes, writing on the front of the envelope, rent, $1,500. Put $1,500 in there. Groceries, $500. You put $500 in, so on and so forth. Well, at some point, you're out of money, aren't you?
Yep.
Well, in the old days, when there was no credit cards, you couldn't spend anymore. In the old days, if there's $1,500 in a rent envelope, you can't take $2,000 out of a $1,500 envelope.
Yep.
But nowadays, because you just have a bank account, you take out as much money as you want. And the way most people budget, they look at their bank balance and say, oh, there's enough money in there. But the reality is that most of that money is already spoken for.
Yeah, true.
Utilities on the 15th, the streaming, the this, the that, which is why most people are waiting on the next check to hit and hoping that they don't overdraft their account.
Yeah, that I agree with.
So the first thing that I would do, that I do with all of my clients, is I say, we're not worried about the credit. We're worried about what we have to budget for first. We look at what's left over. We're going to do minimum payments. If there's anything left over, then we're going to start to do that. Because one of the biggest mistakes I see people make is, because everyone likes the idea of saving. I'll have clients that are sending $300 a month to their savings account. And when we actually look at their budget, their income is $5,000 and they're spending $6,000. If your income is $5,000 and you're spending $6,000, how much can you send to your savings account?
Nothing.
Exactly. But they do it anyway. And then mid-month, they transfer the $300 back.
You back into
So you just lied to yourself.
Yeah.
So you can't even talk about savings until you budget. Savings only comes after you budgeted for all of your expenses. By definition. If there's nothing left over, you can't save.
True.
You have to budget first. Then you save. Then I get into, okay, but what are you saving for? I'll talk to people and they'll say, oh, because most people have a savings account. And I'll say, okay, you got $5,000 in there. What's it for? Emergency, vacation, home improvement. Okay. Then I'll say to them, okay, so when you transfer that $800 from your emergency account from your savings account 2 weeks ago, which of those categories did you take it from? No answer, because they don't know. So you're not saving. What you want to do is just like in the envelope example. If some of that money is for an emergency, you have an envelope called emergency. It might live in a savings account, but the money is emergency. Do you see what I'm saying? And
Oh,
when you
yeah.
think of it that way, if you have $3,000 in your emergency account and you're going to transfer 800 to cover uh, the trip to the Bahamas, do you really want to take $800 out of your emergency fund to cover the trip to the Bahamas?
No,
Right.
not
And
the
and
emergency.
and we, exactly. And by the way, you shouldn't have gone anyway because you don't have any money in your vacation. You see what I'm saying? So it's not savings. It's not savings itself. It's really a matter of you want to give your money jobs. That's actually the real key is you give jobs to your money. And then when you give jobs to your money, it actually doesn't matter whether your vacation account lives in your checking account or your savings account because the job is vacation. The location is irrelevant. It doesn't matter whether it's in your savings account or checking account. The only difference is maybe your savings account gives you more interest, but the job is the same.
Okay.
Isn't that true?
Yes. So
It's irrelevant.
yeah, technically you put all of this in your $3,000 or $4,000 for emergency, um, daily issues, monthly issues, etc. Because you get interest on your savings and you do your checking, and then whenever you need to do something like the oil change, the brakes, the tires, whatever, you're taking it out of the savings, but you're also taking it out of that car maintenance.
Yes. Right. But watch this. It doesn't have to be that complicated because for most beginners, I actually tell my clients, just have a checking account. Why can't the car maintenance live in your checking account? Because most people say, oh, I'm getting extra interest from my savings account. Well, the Federal Reserve is cutting rates. And unless you have your money in a high yield savings account, the interest on a savings account at a regular bank versus the interest on a checking account is negligible. Negligible.
I guess you want to feel like you got that.
I understand. I know. Right. I know.
You feel like you do.
Now, you asked me about, the investing piece. So to me, investing should be, so the difference between saving and investing comes down to time. What I mean by that is, and when I say time horizon. So remember I talked about giving your money jobs. Well, if a job of your money is we're going on vacation next year to the Bahamas, we're not going to put that money in the stock market. Why?
No.
Because the stock market is a coin flip every year, and you might put 1,000 in and you get back 900. But we don't want to do that. But if you tell me I'm saving up for a house, but we don't think we're going to go and buy a house for 5 to 7 years, well, we can talk now about investing. So the time. So first of all, what is this thing supposed to do? And then secondly, what's the time horizon? So as an example, I invest my emergency account. Most people would say, oh my God, that's sacrilegious. You can't do that, Mike. What if the stock market is down when you have that emergency? And they're like, you have to keep it in your savings account or your checking account, and because you need to be liquid. My answer is I could care less about a $200 emergency. I can cover that. I'm worried about, and this happened to us last year. Last year was a financial tsunami at my house. Started off, we had to do pipe broke in our front lawn. No. It started off with the AC. We had three AC. We had 3 levels to the house. One of the AC units went, and I knew it was going. Finally, I told the guy, "Okay, let's replace it." Okay, great. And I was like, "Okay, that's about $7,000 to $8,000." I had the cash. Goes into the attic, and you have to replace the coil as well. And we had a different brand, so we had to get a new coil. Well, the existing coil was leaking. It was leaking into my furnace.
Oh no.
So I had to get a new furnace. So new AC unit, new coil, new furnace, $15,000.
Well,
So we had in our budget, we have something called a capital expense account. Capital expense is a corporate term where basically it means a large corporate outlay, like a new building, a new factory.
okay.
Well, for me, if you own a house, new AC unit, new roof,
Yep.
new pipe, things that cost when you have to replace them $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. So we actually had a fund for that. Most of that 15,000 came from the fund. A little more came from the emergency. When you think about an emergency, you think about somebody that's 30 years old right now, you might have 10 or 15 emergencies in your life. Well, when you have those emergencies, and I'm talking about the big ones, $10,000, $15,000 emergencies, there's this little thing called inflation. So people will say, well, Mike, if I put $1,000 in, I want $1,000 out. Great. So the thing that cost $1,000 5 years ago, when you have to replace it 5 years later, is it going to cost $1,000?
No,
Of
1,500.
course not. Right. So you have your money in the savings account and you get $1,000 back because interest is negligible. Maybe you get $1,050. But the thing that you need to buy is $1,500. Where does the extra money come from? So right. But watch this. You didn't budget for it. So it's not coming from your paycheck because your paycheck is already spoken for. So it's not coming from your paycheck. It's not. It's not. Which means what? Which means you're going to have to put it on your credit card.
And some parents or somebody.
No, but the real answer is what you want for your emergency fund is you want inflation adjusted dollars. What I mean is you want the purchasing power of that $1,000 to keep up with inflation. That's all it means. Just a fancy way of saying, I know that things get more expensive every year. I want my $1,000 to grow at least with the rate of inflation, if not higher. And you cannot get that by definition by putting your money in a savings account. You cannot get it. And here's why. You might say to me, Mike, a few years ago, high yield savings account paying 5%. You want to know why they were paying 5%? Because inflation was 8%.
Oh, okay.
So you said, Mike, I'm getting 5, right? But inflation is 8. So you're actually losing. So the only way over the long term to get inflation adjusted dollars is to invest in assets.
So that would be the investing in the stock market part.
Oh, it could be stock market, it could be real estate. What things that are thought of as traditional assets. It doesn't just have to be the stock market. It could be stocks, it could be bonds, it could be real estate. Assets is the real key. I personally prefer the stock market, but it doesn't have to be that. A lot of people prefer real estate, so I'm not. All I'm saying is that the rate of return of the assets should be greater than the rate of return of inflation. Makes sense, right?
Yeah, it should. So that when you have that $1,500 emergency 5 years, when you put away the 1,000, you have some place to go get that extra.
Yes. So now, if you were putting that $100 a month away in a diversified portfolio, then now 5 years later, you go to that diversified portfolio, and it's very likely that that portfolio has outpaced inflation. So I'm not worried about people are like, oh my God, Mike, they're like, but you need to be liquid. You need to have I can sell my stocks and have the money back in my checking account in 3 business days. I'm not worried about that. If I need to put it on a card, I can put it on a card, but I'll have the money in 3 business days.
And pay myself back after.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh. I want to be you when I grow up.
No, but it's really, if you really think about what investing, people try to make investing very mysterious, but you really want to know what investing is? Investing is simply this. You have liabilities in life, your mortgage, car payments, whatever, right? And the only way that most people can pay their liabilities is to do what? To work.
Yeah.
That's it. I got to go to work because I have liabilities. But what if your assets are going to pay your liabilities?
Well, be hard.
Then I don't have to work. Or maybe I only have to work part-time. What's this exact same thing here? I know that listen, you might live another 25 or 30 years. You need assets to pay for that because you're not going to be able to work at the level that you're working at right now when you're 85.
No.
You will not be able to.
So
it's not a question. Nor do you want. So it's not a question of, well, do we need to do this? Or is this a really good idea? This is a question of, if you want to have any sort of regular lifestyle, you must do this. Must. Otherwise, we get ourselves in a position where you hear seniors say, well, I'm on fixed income. And my heart breaks when I hear that, because you cannot be on fixed income. And what I mean by that is, with the exception of a fixed mortgage, or unless you have some sort of special lease agreement, rental agreement, you have rent protection or whatever, but most people don't have that. Unless you have something like that, literally every other expense that you have in your budget goes up almost every year.
Mhm.
So
That's true.
since we know that, shouldn't we have a plan? We can't. I mean, sitting there and denying that fact is delusional.
Yeah.
It's as delusional as Cypher saying, "Put me back in the Matrix. I don't care." Okay, but it's delusional to think that 20 years from now your expenses will not be significantly higher. They will be. So the only question is, what is your plan? That's the only question.
Well, I married well.
Fine.
I did my job.
I understand.
Yeah.
I hear it. I do.
Why? At this point, it's almost 40 years. Why not? I love him too, but hey, I was like, that one right there, he gonna take me places.
All right.
Where we at?
All right, and then I think you've said it. What's the biggest budgeting mistake you see people make? And I think you've gone like spending more than what they make, or is there another one?
So the biggest budgeting mistake that I see my clients make, and what I mean by this is, because first of all, most people don't have a budget, right? Let's just be real.
Yeah.
Most people don't have one. But for the people that do have a budget, the biggest mistake that I see people make is they are doing expense tracking instead of budgeting. And what I mean by that is, if all you do is go into your budget spreadsheet or budget program and say, "Oh, this is what I spent, this is what I spent, this is what I spent." That's expense tracking. Budgeting says we are going to limit ourselves to $300 a month for eating out. I'm just using an example.
Okay.
If you do expense tracking, you spend whatever you spend. Budgeting says our limit is $300. And before we make a decision to eat out, we look in our budget envelope. I'm using envelope in the virtual sense, but you can think of it as a physical envelope in the real world where you have $300 in it. Well, like I said, before they were credit cards, if all you had was $300 in it, you can't take more than $300 out of an envelope that has $300 in it. Budgeting says we are going to limit ourselves to the 300, and we're not going to put our head in the sand and ignore it and say, "Oh, it's okay if we go over." Budgeting says no, 300 is our limit, and we're at 275 now, and we know if we go to the steak place, that's going to be extra 70. We're not going to go. That's what budgeting says.
Right.
Expense tracking says, we said we were going to do 300, but we ended up doing 450. And you just kind of shrug your shoulders. But the problem is, where did the extra $150 come from? Because your income is the same.
Right.
Your income is exactly the same. So if you spend an extra $150, it's got to come from somewhere.
I don't really think people just go ahead and spend it.
I know.
They don't think about the consequences of it.
I know. But again, right. But again, remember, if you were thinking about the old cash world where there were no credit cards.
Oh yeah.
Well, if you spent an extra $150, well, then you have to take it out of an extra envelope, and that might mean that you can't buy groceries, or it might mean you can't pay your utilities, and your utilities get shut off. But the reason people will go ahead and do it today is they say it's just on the credit card. It's just on the card. What's the harm?
Right. But the consequences is, I don't think
exactly. The consequence is that the system is feeding on you in the form of interest.
Yeah.
That's the consequence. And most people say to me, "Well, Mike, I pay my balance every month." And here's what they're saying. They pay their statement balance.
Okay, yeah.
And there's a difference between your statement balance and your total balance.
Yep.
Because if you put $1,000 on a credit card in April, when you finally get that bill in May, the bill may not even be due until June.
Right. Yeah.
The statement balance is what you spent between April and May. But by the time you get your statement in May, you may have put another $1,500 on there.
True.
So most people can't pay the total balance. So what they're doing is they're paying the statement balance. They're paying what's in the rearview mirror. But here's where that gets you in trouble. And a lot of people can get away with that for years, but then all of a sudden an emergency comes. And now you can't pay the statement balance.
Right.
So then what happens when you can't pay the statement balance? Now you pay the minimum balance. And now they got you. And then you lie to yourself and you say, I'm going to make it up next month. You're not going to make it up. You're not going to make it up next month because I just told you your money already has existing jobs.
Yeah.
You're not going to make it up.
It's true.
Mm-hmm.
And then last question is, are there any simple rules of thumb you recommend?
I don't. Yeah, the 50-30-20 thing, no. Because again, it's situation specific. Because I can't tell you 50-30-20 because you might not have any money to save. You might not have any money to invest. So no, I don't. My simple rule of thumb is you need to do as comprehensive a budget as possible.
Can we just for the audience, Mike? Can we just what is that 50-30-20? What is that? Just for the audience say.
So I think I don't remember, but I think it's like I think the 20 is like the amount of money you're supposed to save.
Okay.
I don't remember off the top of my head, but I know it's something like that. Like how much how much money should be going towards like fixed expenses, and I think some of it is maybe discretionary, and I think some of it is But the problem is, most people don't know where they are. So you can't use a rule of thumb like that because again, most people are actually overspending. And so if you're overspending, you can't even talk about saving.
Right.
So you could say that you could maybe do something like that when you have gotten your budget under control and you now have money to save and invest. But even then, I believe it should be driven more by priorities. So for example, I have a nephew and I won't say how old he is, but he wants to retire early. And we sat down and did a budget for him, and he's made a decision. I'm going to pour all this extra money into my investments because it's important to me by the time I'm in my mid-40s to be able to have financial independence, retire early. Well, he's trying to do 25, 30, 40% of his money because he made a decision that says this is important to him.
Right. Okay.
That's why it comes back to your priorities.
Got you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
First of all, thank you for your commitment.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we want to thank you again, Mr. Collison.
You're quite welcome.
For coming on.
Someone gave you something to think about?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's too much.
Definitely gave me something to think about, and I'm sure the audience as well.
I would say the only other thing is if any of your listeners ever want to contact me, I don't know if you have.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's get your contact information, and I'll put that. You'll say it, and I'll put it in the show notes.
Okay, it's just yourfirejourney.coach. And then if anyone wants to reach me, they can reach me at michael@yourfirejourney.coach.
Okay. It's yourfirejourney.coach.
No, .coach.
Okay.
Yep.
And then Michael@yourfirejourney.coach.
.coach. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, cousin. You have a good rest.
Absolutely. Yeah, you too.
Disclaimer, we are not therapists or financial experts. We're simply sharing lessons from our crazy love story and hoping that something we've learned helps someone else.
A shout out to everyone who took a few moments out of their day to listen. We truly appreciate your support and hope something from today's episode encouraged you, challenged you, or helped you reflect.
Is there someone in your life who consistently gives more than expected or makes a lasting impact? Take a moment to show them appreciation, whether through your time, encouragement, support, or simply saying thank you. And if you like, share their story with us. You can message us on social media or email us at mockmediagroup4@gmail.com. You can also visit mockmediagroup.com to stay connected with everything happening with the Mocks. If you enjoyed this content and would like to support the podcast, you can donate at buymeacoffee.com/Mock Media Group. Your support helps us improve the show, upgrade equipment, and continue creating consistent content. And don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode.
Thanks for joining us this week on He Says, He Says, your bi-weekly dose of Black love. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Mock Media Group and He Says at He Says, He Says. The Mock Minute is also on Substack, so sign up so you can get our weekly newsletter. Substack.com at Mock Media Group. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and send us your comments or questions to social media or email mockmediagroup4@gmail.com.
See you in 2 weeks. And make sure if you want to reach out to Michael Collison, you can locate him at yourfirejourney.coach, or you can email him at michael@yourfirejourney.coach.
1, 2,